Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the Sowetan Women's Club Conversations. My name is Nwabisa Makunga, the editor of the Sowetan, and it's really lovely to have you on this beautiful Tuesday morning in Johannesburg. My week is really running ahead of me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's one that we think is quite important, one that many of us have been affected by as moms, as parents, as sisters, etc. And so it's about education. We know that COVID-19 has basically disrupted and turned our lives upside down, as it were. And one of those aspects is really about, our kids in schools. Schools having closed for almost 2 months now. How do we assist them? The whole notion of learning at home is something very new to many of us. And I understand that a lot of people are actually doing, various things in their corners to try and assist us to get ahead in this academic year. So I've got a number of guests who are with me today who are going to help us unpack this. First up, I want to introduce to you Ms. Gugu Ntuli, who is the executive at the group executive at the SABC, and she will be talking to us about the SABC learning channel. Gugu, hello, sis.
Good morning to the viewers.
And next up, we've got Dr. Dion Swatz, who is an education psychologist based in the Eastern Cape, who works for the Eastern Cape Department of Education and also runs his private practice. Hello, Doc, how are you doing?
Hi, good morning to you and to all the viewers. Thank you.
We've also got Ms. Tina Makubela, who is an award-winning lecturer at Rhodes University and the founder of Makrup's tutoring services, and really a person who is quite active in the education space in tutoring, who's going to help us unpack today what it is, what we need to know about particularly helping kids at school. Tina, hello, Siswa.
Hi, Sisi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let me start with you. So many of us, we're kind of left with this thing of, okay, right, so your kids are now at school. We don't know what to do. We're just parents. We're not really teachers. Are we all equipped as parents, as people, as adults, to assist kids to learn at home?
I think one of the things we sort of have to wrap our minds around is the idea that I don't think we're supposed to be replicating what is meant to be happening at school. So this is what has been termed emergency online teaching or online learning. So not everything is going to run as we expect it to run at school. So I think one of the things that we should sort of guard ourselves from is trying to reproduce what's supposed to be happening at school. It's going to frustrate us and the kids as parents. And it's quite important that we know that COVID-19 took all of us by surprise. This includes the teachers, the school, the learners themselves, and us as parents. So being patient with each other is very important during this time. I think as parents, what's important is trying to form some form of a structure for our kids to enable them to try to work during these uncertain times that no one is familiar with.
I'm not sure even how we do that. Okay, so I get the structure, right? I get the fact that we're going to have some sort of routine going. So I open a maths book and I look at it and I'm like, what is going on here? How do I even begin to assist my son in doing that kind of thing?
I think as parents, we are equipped to at least help them find a routine. And kids will differ. Some of them will be quite independent. Some of them won't be as independent. So I think a parent should be able to gauge your kind of child and what they are able and not able to do. So for those kids who are very independent, I think, sitting down with them and saying, as per, the subjects that you're doing, I would advise, I'll break down the hours and stuff later on, but I would advise that, dedicate this much time to studying and sitting down for this much time, and have an agreement with your child that, between 8 o'clock until 11, you're dedicating that time to school time. And I think also we need to pull in our resources. This could be private tutoring, but also it could be parents coming together. So for example, you might not know mathematics, but I might know mathematics, but I'm not fully equipped to assist my child in English. So coming together as parents to assist each other in this, uncertain time is also very important. But don't try to be a teacher, because as a teacher, for example, I know how to read a child's face when they're a bit confused. I know the misconceptions that they might have when it comes to adding or multiplying fractions, and I'll be able to correct that because I have experience in teaching that subject, and I know what the literature says about the kinds of misconceptions they might come across. But you as a parent, even if you do understand mathematics, you might not find it very easy to understand what's confusing my child. This is quite easy to understand what's very confusing about this. So being patient with each other and being patient with the kids is also important, but pulling each other's resources together to make sure that we're assisting each other, I think is also very important.
Dion, I was just telling you guys off air that, as we were trying to set up, I was getting texts from my child's school saying, here's today's work. And a lot of us get very anxious, when that happens, because as I was saying to Tina just now, you don't know where to begin. How do we deal with that anxiety and to be able to kind of move past that, to help them in actually, going through the work and setting up the structure, as Tina says, setting up some sort of normal structure for them to be able to learn?
I think the most important thing that we've got to acknowledge is that anxiety is probably the biggest emotion that we're going to be feeling across this whole period. Okay, it's putting the parents as well as the learners in a state of uncertainty and in a state of feeling that I'm not in control of what I'm doing. And the minute that hits us, then it sort of puts us as if we're a boat on a sea that's just drifting. And that is what we need to guard against. Because remember, as parents, our first education of our children is the example that we set. So if we as parents can navigate ourselves out of that so that we can control some sort of control in this whole sense of not being in control, then it gives us a feeling as knowing that we are where we are going. That's why it was so important that Tina is saying create structure, because structure is one of those things and boundaries that allows us to be able to say, despite all of this that I can't control, I can control this little bit. And part of that is my child's education, the little bit that I can contribute. It's also important to realize that if we sort of model a sense of being in control, then our children will sort of follow that and also feel that it's not letting them completely out. Remember, a lot of children are very egotistical. And this is a time that is so difficult for them because they're not able to cope, and they depend on us for coping mechanisms as well.
I was actually going to say, I mean, a lot of my friends have been saying to me, yes, I'm trying to look all in control in front of them, but privately, I'm panicking. And there's a lot of, I think a lot of us parents, there's a lot of weight that we put into each academic year. So I've only got money to do this year, and then the next year, and then the next year. I can't afford to have my child repeat. So those kinds of things that are kind of running at the back of one's mind. How do you quieten down what I call the noise in your mind to allow yourself to say, okay, I'm going to lead this process the best way I can?
I think the first thing that we need to accept and understand is that we're all in the same boat together. What's affecting my neighbor is affecting me, is affecting the president right down to the guy, that's not in such a lucrative job, if I can put it that way. So the guy who works on the floor, as well as right up to the president, we're all in the same boat. So it stands to reason that listen to cues coming from people in control. When the president speaks, he makes a point of saying, we will get through this. We need to latch onto those things that give us hope in a time like this, for ourselves as well as for our children, because that's all we have at this point in time. And remember, the little noise that you get in the back of your head is a little noise all of us get. And at some point, it will get to an end, and we will know that, okay, from here I can commandeer it further. But up until then, it's a thing of taking it step by step, day by day, maybe hour by hour, because the anxieties are very, very real. I don't think most of us have never been in such a point in our lives before, and probably never will be. But the important thing is how to navigate us out of it now, and not look at what happened yesterday or wait for too much for tomorrow. It's what we need to do now.
Now, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, please do remember to leave any questions you may have for our panelists on the chat, and we'll try by all means to filter them through and get them to be answered. Mandule, the SABC has started a learning channel to assist our kids. Tell us about that. Tell us how to access that, and basically what it's designed to do.
Thank you so much. So I think the previous speakers have touched on very important points. Tina spoke about the fact that as parents, we should not try to be teachers, because actually we're not equipped, we're not qualified to do so, and we can actually do more harm than good by trying to structure some sort of teaching formulas with our kids. And then Dion spoke about the anxiety. There is a great deal of anxiety, we know that, and many parents are very confused. They're not sure where to start, how to assist their children if they can at all. We also have another challenge in that, many families at the moment are struggling with just keeping afloat, being able to provide the basics for their homes. Children have to eat, have to be healthy, etc. So you almost need a platform that is going to assist the families in the number of emotional aspects that they are actually enduring during this period. And that's where I believe that SABC education comes in. As you know, SABC education has been at the forefront of enriching young lives and minds for a number of years since our new democracy. And we have had a number of initiatives, such as our virtual academy that actually assists learners, particularly with their curriculum-based education. And that platform is called Ziva. And through that, we have had a number of initiatives like eFunza, that's a digital literacy program that actually supports learning and literacy and reading amongst our learners. We've also got a number of other programs like Geleza Nathi, which is high school focused, again on curriculum. But more recently, beginning of this month, in fact, we actually launched our new education, SABC education channel. And effectively, this was long in the making, because we long felt that we need a consistent platform where we can support the traditional schooling curriculum and also assist those learners who aren't able to be in the school space to be able to learn. But I think that COVID-19, as everything has, it has actually accelerated change in many industries and many sectors. It actually forward our plans to actually have a permanent home for education, which is the channel itself. And on this channel, we really are focusing on curriculum for 10, 11, and 12, grade 11, 12, and also early childhood development. And I think this is really in response to the anxiety that is being felt in the communities by parents, even by teachers themselves. How do you assist young learners while not being able to access
Okay, I think we're losing you there a little bit, Mandula. While we're trying to get that sorted, Tina, there's a question that I just want to pose to you, which is coming. Sorry, Gugu, the connection is letting us down at the moment. While we're trying to get that sorted out, I just want to jump to Tina very quickly. There is a question, Tina, that is being asked, from one of our viewers, Musangwenya, saying not to underestimate the value of teachers, but he actually believes that if parents are actually keen, to help their kids, they can just buckle down and do it. What do you think are limitations that may exist between parents, as what we are, and people who are skilled and trained in the teaching environment?
I think those parents that are able to assist, I think they should go ahead and do so. So, for example, if you are equipped in understanding the curriculum for grade 10 mathematics, and you think you can can offer that kind of support to your child, that's great. I think the limitations really come in place when it comes to understanding first that as a parent, you've got the parent child relationship with your child. And you don't want that compromised because of the impatience that might come from you not understanding why your child is not understanding the curriculum. So I think having trust in the fact that you can allow your child to do this independently and assist where you can and offer some form of support, because as the previous speakers have spoken, that and as you have noted, that there's a lot of anxiety that's coming through when it comes to this. You are anxious about the fact that your child might be falling behind because there's something else at the back of your mind that is, I'm paying for the fees, even though this child is here. So that anxiety is not a good space to, offer that kind of support to your child, unless otherwise that kind of support is something that you were doing previously. So before this new normal started, you were the kind of parent who would jump in when your child is studying and say, hey, what are you doing? Do you need any kind of help? I think when it comes to those kinds of relationship where that was already nurtured, that kind of support was already nurtured, it's easy to transition into this new space of, assisting your child. But now if you're coming in full force and wanting to be a full-time teacher, I think you're putting a lot of burden on yourself as a teacher, as a parent, number one. And also you might even compromise your relationship with your child. So I say I'd rather a parent comes in, when and as needed by the child, and sort of try to monitor the learning rather than being at the forefront of the learning. That's what the teacher would do. The teacher will set the tone in terms of what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and also, try and navigate that space of learning and trying to assist the child as much as possible. And also, some parents have their jobs still in full force, so they still need to be working from 9 till 5. So to be able to do that full stream of work and also provide that kind of support to your child, I think it's a difficult job. So rather come in as and when needed, and rather monitor the entire learning than try to be a teacher. I think that those are two different jobs. And then when school resumes, the teacher then will come in and close the gaps that existed, or you as a parent, you can close those gaps, but don't jump the loops and from not assisting at all and being a full-time teacher who's trying to I think it's trying to invade in the space of learning, and you're not allowing your child to be independent, because I think we're undermining kids a little bit in terms of thinking that they can't do the learning on their own, especially the higher grades. I think they do have the capacity to sit down and engage with the material and then come to you and assist. And then with the lower grades, I think parents, in terms of they need some form of flexibility in the structure. So structure is important, but also being flexible with the structure is also important, I think. So you might say, in a day, I want you to work for 4 hours, but when that 4 hours might happen might be different on each day. So some days it might be in the morning, some days it might be in the evening, and that should be okay. And providing that kind of support to your child as a parent, not as a teacher, is quite important.
Gugu, if I may just jump back to you, let's talk about accessibility of the channel. First of all, we're talking earlier about the disparities in South Africa, the fact that we are very unequal. How accessible is it, and what exactly practically does it offer? I understand you say it offers curriculum. How does it run from day to day?
Yes, at the moment we are broadcasting 12 hours a day. And we are focusing, as I said earlier, on early childhood development as grade 10, 11, and 12. And I think the focus there is really to support those critical areas of curriculum development. But of course, we would like to and are planning to expand those after the COVID-19 to all of the various grades. In terms of accessibility at the moment, we are on our digital platforms, we are on YouTube, and we are on sabceducation.co.za, and we stream live from there. However, we are also hoping to be on terrestrial television, because we know that there is a challenge with access to data and access to even computer facilities for many families. And so it will be important for the content to be on SABC 1, 2, and 3 as much as possible. We have been funding this process ourselves as the SABC from creating
I think the network is really dropping us.
As well as the content. So we are obviously actively looking space to become Sonia. In any case, as I said, we are working towards having the platform on terrestrial television, sponsored by interested parties within the education space. But at the moment, it's predominantly digitally based.
Okay. Dion, I believe that words matter. Things we say to our kids are very defining and very influencing on on their minds. What are things that, as parents, as we're all frustrated, obviously, we're all locked at home, and all of that. What are things that we should guard against and saying to our children so that we don't necessarily break them down? And what are things we should be saying to them to build their self-esteem and their confidence up?
I think it's very important in the first instance to communicate. And I'm saying this because, we take it as an assumption that there is regular communication in all households. This is not normal situations, and it can lend to a time of almost an oversupply of time and an oversupply of socialization. But it is very important to continue with communication. It's also very important to communicate the right things. Knowing that we all almost like have a surface of anxiety that we're all sliding on, it's important to make it feel to our children that they are important despite the times that we are in, and that when we speak to them in positive terms.
Yeah.
And we refer to them and we refer about them in affirmations rather than in negative consequences, because that can have an immensely negative, like you use the word self-worth, an immense dent in their self-worth and in their own development of their own identity. So it's important that despite what is happening around us, we need to remain calm, and we need to almost like empathetically speak to our kids, because we can understand a little bit better the situation that they are going through.
Yeah.
But it's extremely important to be positive in this time and to make them feel that they are worth it.
I think so. I think sometimes as parents, very carelessly and without even thinking and without malice, really, there's a lot of things that we say, like, "Oh my gosh, you're so lazy."
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. I think things we probably.
And that sticks, eh?
Yeah.
Because the child takes that assumption that the parent labels as, oh, this is what my mom thinks of me, And when it comes to doing schoolwork in a time like this, what normally comes to the fore is that perception that I have of myself. I'm not going to make it anyway. You know what I mean? And that's what we need to guard against.
Talking about that, there's a question coming through which is asking about whether or not children should be pushed through the system this year, regardless of their marks. And I think, Dion and Tina, if you could tackle this one. Should children be pushed through the year because they've lost so much of several weeks of the year, regardless of their marks?
Firstly, okay, Tina, you go.
Okay. I'm totally against the idea of, let's go ahead and promote everyone because we've lost so much time. As mentioned, we are dealing with, uncertain times and uncertain, unfamiliar territory. So we don't know what's going to happen between now and, when we can go back to vaccine. So as much as we'd like to know, because our brains would like to work in a way where we know, oh, this is going to end in September, then make a plan. I think what we can do in the meantime is to try and, cultivate the learning in different ways. And the learning doesn't have to happen in the traditional way. So for young kids, for example, baking might be a good lesson for mathematics, for example, like teaching your child how to measure with those measuring scoops, that then they will be learning, addition, what to do if you don't have a 30 millimeter scoop and have a 15 millimeter scoop. How many scoops do you need to make the amount of, scoops that is needed? I think as parents and teachers and schools, that's all we can try and do while we don't know when this is going to end. And then when we have some form of certainty that we can go back to some form of normality, we can then try and see what can be done to reimagine the curriculum. Because I think this time is actually calling for that. It's calling for us to ask, besides the traditional curriculum that happens in the classroom, how can learning that happens even at home be sort of, used as the kind of learning that, we imagining happening in the classroom? Because there's a lot of lessons that happen at home that I think, match the kind of learning that we envision, or rather would want to happen in the classroom also. So I think the whole idea of trying to promote everyone without a proper plan is not a good one. I'd rather we look at how much of the curriculum have we managed to cover, and try find ways to work with what we have managed to cover, and then try and see what can be reimagined in the following grade in order to ensure that whatever was missed this year, we can actually try and cover. For example, in mathematics, there's no way to understand grade 11 mathematics without grade 10 mathematics. So for you to say, let's just move to grade 11 without, having a proper plan of what's going to happen with what the work that was missed, because the work is in building blocks. So if you miss the foundation, then you are not able to move on to the following grades. So I think let's sit with the uncomfortability of sitting with the uncertainty, and then work with that kind of work with what we have at the end of this pandemic, and then see what can we do with what we have. So if we only manage to cover only 50% of the curriculum, for example, what can we do with that 50% moving forward to the following grade? And what can we assess? What can we do? Do we have to reimagine what assessment looks like? Do we actually need, the kinds of tools we're currently using for assessment? Or do we need to reimagine what assessments need to be looking like in this current uncertain time? But I don't think we can just move people to, kids to the following grade just for the sake of saying, we've done, what we could. We could even explore what would it mean if we can't really save the year and have to, relook how the year is going to happen. Because as much as we would like to say there are so many resources, the reality for South Africa is that not all those resources are accessible to everyone. As Usiskugu has mentioned, that as much as we have, these online resources, majority of our country has no access to those resources. So we're actually leaving a lot of people behind, while other people are able to, to continue with the normal because they've got those kinds of resources. So I think we need to rethink what we mean, around promotion and around the idea of, saving the year.
Diona, I'm seeing that you're agreeing with Tina, but perhaps let me ask the question differently. If we were to weigh these two things up, so on the one hand, we put basically what are a family's plans going forward, any practical plans that a family may have, and so they, and a kid passing a year actually depends on that. And then on the other hand, you have the impact of pushing through a child who's not ready for the next grade. How does the one impact the other?
Firstly, a curriculum is something fluid. It's not a rock. It's not a stone that isn't amendable. And I think what we need to start looking at now, before we sort of throw in the towel and say, ah, it's all gone, 2020 is a waste, because it's not, is for us to come up with creative ways to make sure that the curriculum still um, gets as much attention as it is possible, but that the real think tanks in education start working around ways to say that, we can still assess for the possibility of allowing progression without the learner or the person feeling that he or she's, you know this that person's worth isn't taken into consideration. So for argument's sake, if I, at the middle of this year, indicate to somebody now already that, you know what, you're going to be pushed through to the next grade anyway, despite, and Tina's made a lot of credible arguments. But even over and above that is the whole value judgment about what am I able to do, and to what extent am I being rescued in a situation in which I can actually do a lot more about what I can.
We've got about 5 or so minutes to go. I just want to tackle one question that has come through, and it's quite a practical one, from Janja, asking what tools should parents have to support their children at home. So, I mean, one, I think Cisco, you'll talk about, the learning education channel, but what other things are parents perhaps supposed to get to be able to assist kids?
I think personally, sorry, is that for Google?
Okay.
Tina, you can go first, and then Google will come back. We'll come to you.
Okay, sure.
I think the most important thing is trying to, create the environment first, and an environment that is conducive to studying. And this differs from home to home in terms of resources and what's available and what's not available. But I think a little corner that is dedicated for studying, where everyone knows if Tina is sitting in that corner, it's meant for her to be studying. So the environment, I think, is quite key, and I think unfortunately it's not available for everyone, in the country because of our different resources at home. But also, I think what's also important is taking advantage of the online resources that are available that are normally at a cost but now are for free. Some of them are normally for free. For example, Vodacom, I know, has eSchool. I know the SABC, as Google has mentioned, but also there's things like Khan Academy that can be used where the learner is doing things at their own pace, and these are particularly important for kids who don't have currently what you call this e-learning happening at school currently, because not all schools are actually continuing with the curriculum, but some schools are actually offering resources. So those are the kinds of things that I think people can tap into, but also ensuring that your child has the basics, which is the textbook that they use at school, the resources that they need to learn, paper, pencil, everything that is needed, but also dedicated time that is structured for the child to know that I'm not going to disturb Tina in the next 4 hours because she's busy with her learning. So just respecting that space that she's supposed to be learning and experiencing this. And then some parents can even tap into things like private tutoring, where they can outsource the kind of help which is offered by many companies, including mine, where you can outsource the help and not offer it yourself if you can't. So if you've got if you can tap into those resources that are available both online and offline, but also kind of offering, a shoulder to cry on for your child. Hence, I'm very careful about being a teacher, but also being a parent at the same time. Because you want your child to come to you and cry about, them not understanding in a particular topic, and you being empathetic about, what is happening, and offering, some form of comfort by saying, I also had deadlines for this week that I didn't manage to meet. This time is difficult for all of us, and having conversations as families about the difficulties we are going through because of this new normal. So I think having that space and that structure is quite important. And then the parents also offering themselves as accountable partners to their child, where they can come to them and be honest with the fact that, I was supposed to do 5 tasks, I was not able to do them. And then, offering support to the child and saying, okay, because you didn't manage to do this, maybe tweak your schedule like this. These are practical things that we do as adults in general. But I think when it comes to our kids, we tend to, be so strict and so structured that we want, you must be done with this and you must do this. And then it offers an environment that is very uncomfortable to the kids, because they're seeing you as a different person to you being their parent, because you are really trying to enforce things to happen as per normal, whereas it's not a normal time.
Okay, Gugu.
Yes, I think maybe I can also speak as a parent who homeschooled their kid for 5 years and while working at the same time. So it is a very, very difficult balance. But and I think that the discussion here today has been on the premise that we are talking to individuals or homes where people have access. Majority of South Africans, as you highlighted, do not have access to internet, do not have access to laptops and so forth, but they do have access to the radio. And the SABC has radio programs that are specific to education for each particular learning grade. And so what I think is important, which Tina has touched on, is really structuring what you're doing at home. Whether you're sitting in a village somewhere in Limpopo, or you need a structure. You need for children to understand that, right, we may not be physically at school, but we need structure. So as a parent, you have to get organized. You have to know if you're having to listen to Thobela FM and they've got education programs on there, when are they aired? What kind of content is going to be aired on there? And prepare your children every single day. So it is quite a bit of an effort for parents to just get organized. By getting organized, you also organize the children. So there's radio content, it's got educational focus, there's TV content. As I said, although the education channel is not necessarily full-time on the terrestrial platform, you do have sections of educational programming during the day that are led by professional teachers from the Department of Basic Education that actually run students through the curriculum and class content, and even have exercises and activities for them to try out. So absolutely, we've got to look at ways in which we can assist those that don't have access to Khan Academy and the like. Because of course, if you've got Khan Academy, you are in a very, very positive space in terms of structuring your learning. If you're dependent on your parents to support you, radio and television are really a good source of educational content. And as I say, structure as a parent, structure your learning, structure the children's day, and also structure activity where they can just run around and get away from schooling and thinking about school programs. That is also very important for them when they actually now have to get back into the learning space.
I think what you're saying, Kuko, is quite empowering also for me as a parent, because I think what it does then do, it says, this is what you've got access to, and then you're able to structure, as you say, to work around, the times at which that information is available. And I think to build a culture of having a very structured home and knowing that, okay, at 3 o'clock, we've got this program that we need to, so you're able to kind of urge your child to say, okay, fine, this is what you're going to do. That's a form of support that, in my view. Can I give you guys just one last, for 1 minute each, and answer and try and put you on the spot, if I may. Should schools open soon enough? I will start with Gugu through to Hida.
Wow, did you have to start with me?
1 minute as you're closing. I gotta be controversial. Should schools be opening, and when?
Look, I think my position is that, the health and the well-being of individuals comes first. Absolutely, it must be prioritized. Lives are important. And in any decision that we're going to take, that must be central. So if schools must be open, it must be on the premise that we absolutely secure the lives and the well-being of our children. And while schools are not open yet, and our government is still finding ways of ensuring safety in the school space, we have these platforms, we have the education channels, and many more online resources that can support not only parents but the learners themselves. But I think at the end of the day, we must focus on the lives. Lives matter more than education. You can always catch up on education, but you cannot catch up on somebody's life.
Brilliant. Dion?
Yes, I'm fully in agreement with that statement. And for me, it's not just medical health; it's also psychological health. There's no sense in getting somebody in and they're fearing about, whether it's safe enough for them to be there, and that impedes the whole learning process as well. So, over and above the medical health, which is obviously paramount, I think psychologically, learners must also feel that the space is safe enough for them to go back into.
Absolutely. Tina?
I think it's a difficult one to answer. I really think, I agree with the other two speakers that health is very important, but I'm also very torn around the idea that majority of the country is not experiencing the kind of learning that other kids are able to access during this time. And the gap is being widened by this time for those who do not have. So I think as we're thinking about the health, it's also very important for us during this time, while we're waiting for the right time for schools to open, to actually think about the kind of support that we're going to have ready to support the kids who are going to be left very much behind by this time. So I also support the fact that, health first, but I'm also torn around the idea that there's a child sitting in Usikisiki who doesn't, have access to any of these things, whose environment doesn't allow them to have a structured, learning time, because they should go and, herd the cattle or whatever the case is. So as much as these things are available, some homes are not, ready for this kind of learning that we are suggesting, while some homes are ready for this kind of learning that we're suggesting. So I think we, as a country, I think this time is also, fleshing out the kind of inequalities that we have. And, we have to think about how to then rethink how we're going to save the year for those kids, because some kids are continuing with their education. So the gap is actually very wide now because of, the kinds of things that are happening.
Absolutely. I think the reality of our country and its inequality is something that really ought to, in fact, that does define everything we do. And so in every way that we do, we're trying to assist, we need to be mindful of how to reach people who we are unable to reach practically. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insights. I think as a parent, I have learned a lot, and I'm hoping that a lot of people tuning in and our members have done so. Thank you to Tina. Thank you, Dion. Thank you, Gogo, for joining us. Thank you to all of you for joining us, to our members of the Sowetan Women's Club. Thank you very much for always supporting us. You're more than welcome to, if you're not a member, you're more than welcome to sign up to the Women's Club. The links are on this channel. And yeah, we're looking forward to our next conversation. Thank you so much, and Sabulela.